Okay, we are live, except I'm just getting the Instagram on live. All
Yes, we
right.
are. And we hope those of you who are listening and viewing are also live. We expect that you are.
Well, dead people are listening too, but that's a different.
That's true. You know what? That is true too. But this is a whole other discussion. We actually believe that, but that's a whole other topic we'll get into maybe another time.
That's right. Is my sound okay? Can you hear me okay, Dennis?
What?
Okay, so it's Friday at 4.
Yeah, that's an old joke. Sorry. I hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm ignoring you. This is our last one of March.
Yeah,
It's our
in March,
last.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
And
Getting closer to
today,
spring.
yes, indeed. And today's topic is we're going to talk about murdering the messenger. So
Oh my goodness.
it's like kill the messenger, but
Yeah.
we
Word
wanted to
mur-
do an alliteration. And what we
yeah.
mean by murdering the messenger is sometimes you're not necessarily the target. You may be the target, but you may find it easier to observe and notice somebody you care about, somebody you work with, or maybe even a stranger being a target of manipulation. We all know it's easier to see things sometimes in other people than in our own fishbowl. And so we want to give you some best practices and guidelines that we've both learned on how to navigate that situation, because when we say murder the messenger, we mean murder the messenger, particularly if it's someone who's in a relationship, maybe a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend type situation, and they're not quite ready to accept or see the coercion that's going on, the manipulation that's going on.
Yeah,
And
let's clarify this quickly. It's bothering me a little bit. This murder the manipulator, messenger thing, kind of thing. The alliteration of the M&Ms. I get that, but Robin, the word murder, it means take the
kill
life
the
away from.
relationship. It can
Yeah,
kill the relationship.
yeah. I almost said murder the manipulator, which is a whole other issue, but we don't want to urge people to do that.
We haven't
But the
turned
idea,
into a true crime
yeah,
podcast yet.
right. The idea of murder, of course, what we mean, folks, is that you take the life away from, or you use your life with the relationship with that person. And as Robin
No, you
said,
you you cut that person off because you
yeah,
don't like what they're telling you.
yeah, and that's
So you
sad.
kill the relationship.
That's
Yes.
sad. That's sad. That's what we want to prevent from happening, because oftentimes that messenger or that person who wants to share with you what they think is a good thing, they want to share with you something that they think is positive for you. You may not think so, and they wind up feeling as though they did a bad thing, a wrong thing. So you've all
Oh, it's
experienced
it's
that.
much more than that, Dennis. I think it's about someone when you are in a manipulative relationship that's maybe gone on over time, you are manipulating yourself in order to stay in the relationship. So we talked about that in our compliance
Yeah, that's a
episode about
compliance issue.
you
Yes.
have to become complicit. And so therefore you are persuading, manipulating yourself that
Yourself.
everything is
Yes.
okay when you know it isn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you get another person come into the whoever it is, and they start pulling your blinders off and saying, hey, what about this? What about that? And you're not ready to hear that, because you know that if you face it, that you'll have to deal with it.
Mm.
Well, it's easier to stop speaking to that person. The manipulator, by the way, will relish
Oh yeah.
creating a common enemy
Oh
that
yeah.
to bring you closer if you're the
Oh
target
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
manipulation.
They'll
They
be
will
big supporters
bond
of.
with
They
you.
will support and provide the weapon to murder if they
Yes.
can.
So
Oh
they
yeah.
will all of a sudden they will launch a campaign against the messenger.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the messenger will be stupid or nosy or controlling. They
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
project.
Accuse somebody else
And
of being controlling. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, next
Yeah.
thing you know, you're not speaking to your sister, your best
Yeah.
friend, your
Yeah.
whoever, uh because you weren't ready to face
Mm-hmm.
reality.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't about you as the target today, though. This is about you as the friend or the observer or the brother of someone you care about being manipulated, or perhaps just a person in public on a
Mm,
subway train or in a
yeah,
restaurant
right.
witnessing manipulation.
Yeah, yeah, and oftentimes that's even more common than if you have an actual manipulation issue in your family, in your relationship. You may see things on the street or in the store or somewhere in public that someone is being treated in an inappropriate way according to your values, and you want to say something, but you don't. Why? When you know
So
what's going on is wrong and hurtful and you want to do it and you feel the righteousness of it, why don't you say something? That's what we're talking about today.
most people don't say anything because they're deathly afraid of any kind of confrontational
Sure.
situation.
Yeah.
But 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 then when they don't, and this is what I think it's really important just to spend a couple of minutes on, Dennis. When you don't act, when you know it's the right thing to do, when you see something terrible happening in front of you and you don't say anything and you don't do anything, that then eats at you. It
Mhm.
stays in your brain, it stays with you, and you can't get away from it because you can't get away from you. So we want to give you some guidance. Let's start with strangers, Dennis. We want to
Mm.
give you some guidance on some things that you could do. Now, everybody's not necessarily going to be comfortable with all of these things, and you may need to customize them for you.
Of course.
But I would suggest that as a society, if we can all start identifying manipulation
Mhm.
in real time as it's happening, we are going to evolve all of us to
Mhm.
a better life, a
Mhm.
better place.
And we all of our work, Robin and I, all of our work has been dedicated on helping you, the person being manipulated, and helping you to protect yourself and calling out those manipulators for what they really are and so forth. And as Robin said, today's a little bit different. We're focusing on the messenger. We'll get a little bit more in depth on that in a moment. But let's face it, you know who the manipulator is. They become the messenger in some way, and yet you
Wait,
still
wait,
don't
wait.
call them out. No, no, wait. Let me finish my thought.
Let's not conflate it though, because it
No,
gets
no, no. Let me finish my thought. And you don't say anything. Now, what happens here when it's the other way, when it's another person, not your manipulator, it's another person who comes to you and you don't say anything, or they say something to you and you don't respond to them, what happens? You become compliant again. But now let's turn the attention to those of you who want to be the messenger. What can you expect when you want to be the messenger? Now, what may well happen is that when you are the messenger, providing what you believe is perfectly good and advisable and needed and necessary and urgent messaging to the person being manipulated, guess what? You may also face backlash. You may face backlash from the person you're trying to help. We're going to talk a little
so
bit about that today, too.
the people who know that firsthand are officers who go into domestic
Oh,
violence situations where
of course.
typically it's a female being attacked by a
Abused. Yeah.
male,
Yeah.
and they've had the women turn on the officer and attack the
Hmm.
officer. They've had the
Hmm.
women say, don't arrest him and don't do that to him. And she's sitting there with a black eye and a broken
Yeah.
arm and,
Yeah.
defending him. So it's a real thing, this murdering
Hmm.
the messenger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dennis, I was in a park in Boston. I was in the park and I saw this woman with like a 14-year-old son, and he was walking away from her and she was screaming at him, which, okay, yeah, teenagers are tough, I get it, but she was calling him names and she was telling him he was worthless and she was saying really horrific things, and I could hear her across 50 yards away or whatever. And I just, like, my heart started racing because I thought,
Mm.
this poor kid, unbelievable. Like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do?
Mm.
And, because I thought the chances of her turning on me are quite high.
Mm.
I walked over there and I walked by the kid and I did for him what a
Ah.
therapist did for me when I was 13.
Mm.
Sometimes it's succinct is all you need. Sometimes you just need one witness, one observer, one person bearing witness,
Yeah.
I said to him, in a couple of years, you're going to be an adult and you're going to be able to do whatever you want. That's all I said. And I don't think she quite heard me because she was screaming. And that saved my life when a
Mhm.
therapist told me that when I was 13, because I thought there was no end in sight. I thought I was trapped. But when she said, "Oh, in 5 years, you can do whatever you want. You're an
So you
adult."
were you were in a sense the messenger, and you were being attacked, and the backlash was coming to you as the messenger, even though you knew you were right
No,
in
I
this
had no
particular thing.
backlash. The mother did not hear me. I told
Ah,
the
yes, in
son
that
that.
situation, she did not. That's
I
correct.
told the boy, you she has, I didn't say she doesn't have any right to talk to you that way because you can't say a lot. You have to slip it in.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think he realized that by the look on my face of concern. And I went over there and I just said, in a couple of years, you'll be an adult and she won't be able to do anything to you. And then I
Mhm,
just turned on my heels and walked away before she could
mhm,
respond or figure out, like, what did she say to you? So these are the types of things. So what about that? Let's operationalize that.
mhm,
It was done very succinctly, very quietly. If you think about it in advance, the only reason I had that at my fingertips is because it was done for me. I passed
mhm,
it on.
mhm,
I had a therapist, tell me that when I was 13, and I probably would have been dead, suicidal, if
mhm,
she didn't give me that hope. Because
mhm,
then I said, "Oh my gosh, it's going to end.
mhm,
Awesome, I can
mhm.
do the time." Um,
So if you're a
so
messenger, you wanna be the messenger. You've observed, that something bad is going on, and you wanna step in and be helpful. The question becomes, how do you do that?
right, that's what I
And
was just
what
describing, and then you'll
exactly.
never regret that, because if you don't stand up and do something that haunts you, "Why didn't I say that? Why didn't I, that poor kid,
Mhm.
he has no idea."
That's like suicide of the messenger. The messenger is committing
Oh my
suicide
god.
because you think about it, he or she did not say anything and should have and suffers all this time from not saying anything, and they see the consequences. That person that they were trying to help maybe got into worse circumstances and so forth. So as a potential messenger, when you see something, say something. No, let's not make it that simple. When you see something, should you say something? And when and how? First, let's talk about should. Just because you see something that's, to your view, not appropriate, is harmful, that doesn't mean that you should step in and just, let's put it bluntly, butt in. That's the way they will see it. You think it's being helpful. Other people may think it's none of your business. Never mind. You may get some of that as kind of backlash
Well,
as
and in
the
certain
messenger.
situations, it can escalate the domestic,
Yeah.
like if there's real abuse going on. So let's go. There's a case, the Gabby Petito case of the 20-something-year-old girl who,
Yeah.
um, the boyfriend, people saw him grab her, saw him hit her. There were
Hmm.
multiple reports,
Hmm.
and the police, there's a lot on this. If you listen to Crime Analyst, you'll Laura Richards,
Been in all the
analyzes
news. It's
this.
been everywhere.
But the police did nothing, and they actually ended up
Yeah.
blaming her, and
Mhm.
she was being completely controlled, by him, and ended up
Mhm.
being murdered by
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
did the people do the right thing? Yes. They called the police and said, "I saw him hit her." And
Mhm.
the police dropped the ball because he charmed them, and anyway, they didn't get him away from her, and he ended up murdering her. But the bystanders, which really gave me great hope, is there were multiple bystanders who saw them at a rest stop. One of them, I think, passed them on the highway, saw them arguing and, swerving around, and called in their plates. So these are brave people who said, "This isn't right. I have to do something." And it is all of our business. Do not think, "Oh, it's none of my business." When you see a person verbally or physically abusing another person, it's all of our business, because if you don't do something, who will? So how do you do it? You have to think about it, but you do have to move swiftly. You can't wait and do 2 weeks later, you know, call it in or hope you have another opportunity. You've got to do something. And now here's what, in that escalated moment with a stranger where something's going down, manipulators don't like to look bad. They don't like to look bad. They really care about how they look above all else.
Hmm.
So, Dennis, you probably have some ideas about that because if you can move in without shaming the manipulator, but give the target s- anything, anything. If you could say, even if you interrupt the flow, right? And you say, "Oh, excuse me, would you mind if I grab, yeah, would you mind if I grab your girlfriend for a minute? She's the same size as my sister, and I want to see if this top will fit her." You can just
Yeah.
disrupt it
Yeah.
with
That's
something.
that's one technique that you can, if you are the messenger and you are observing the manipulation taking place, one thing you can do is interrupt it. Now, you don't want to just interrupt it by being obvious about it. You may want to do, as
No,
Robin said, ask a question, make a comment, but you have to do the interruption. It has to come at a timely moment. It doesn't mean that you wait until the manipulator stops talking, stops pursuing the tactic that he or she's pursuing. You don't have to wait necessarily, then it's been done. But you have to find a time that doesn't look as though that you are making fun of the manipulator or that you are making light of what he or she is saying. But you do have to find time to interrupt. This is one technique, the interruption. You can do that perfectly okay, and you won't face as much backlash because it'll feel like an interruption. Now, interruptions, let's change the word a little bit. Let's change interruption to interjection. An interruption is something, even we all as kids, mother and dad always said, what? Don't interrupt when people are right. We all learned that lesson, right? So let's change it to interjection. Change your mindset, messenger. You're not interrupting, you are interjecting. You are bringing something to the interaction that's going on, which you
and
perceive as negative,
distracting the
that is
manipulator
there. You're bringing a
momentarily.
positive thing to what you perceive as being negative. So don't be afraid to do it. That is one way that you can do this. Go ahead, Robin. What do you say?
No, I was just thinking, yeah, just the interjection, and it literally is a distraction. You're trying to distract the momentum of
Okay.
what's happening.
Okay. Now that's another wide open one because distraction could be bigger. It doesn't have to be verbal. It may be something
You could
physical.
drop something,
I'm
knock
sorry.
something over,
Absolutely.
spill
I've seen
something,
absolutely spill something. Absolutely.
lots of
Find a
things.
way to distract. So here's the thing going on, and you can interject, but a distraction is completely different. The attention of everyone goes towards the distraction, and the connection at the manipulation is broken for that moment. So
And you can
finding a
try to
distraction.
enlist the help of others if you
There's a
can, but
third way.
here's Dennis, we're about halfway through. The thing that's much, 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 much more difficult is witnessing somebody you care about be the target of ongoing manipulation. This could be a sister-in-law. This could be, a coworker.
Mhm.
We've all, I would say without exception, we've all probably had an experience where we watched someone be in a relationship where they were spellbound. They were under the coercive control of another.
If any of you have parented teenagers, you know what Robin's talking about.
Well, and young girls are
Yeah.
I think the statistics are something like 75% of
Yeah.
girls,
All girls. Yeah.
end
Real
end up
experience. Yeah.
experiencing a coercively controlling
Mhm.
relationship, between the
Mhm.
ages of it's either 14 and 24 or
Yeah.
16 and 24. But
Mhm.
this is the most targeted group, and what do we
Mhm.
know about teenagers?
Mhm.
They wanna belong
They're
at any
easy to
cost.
manipulate.
They're so
Easily.
easy because they wanna belong. They
Yeah.
they don't wanna stick out. They don't wanna be embarrassed. They don't wanna be made fun of. Well, that is the
Yeah.
portal.
Yeah.
That is the easiest portal to manipulate. So what do you do? Because, let's say you have a 16-year-old daughter or you have a brother, and who's an adult, and you're watching them be coercively controlled in a relationship. I guarantee you, if you bring it to their attention directly, they will find a way to make you the enemy and probably cut you out of their life, and you'll be able to do nothing to help them after that.
Let me give you another one. Now, this is going to be interesting, folks. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you know that when we talk about the tactics that are used against you, one of the tactics that we often talk about is the use of a surrogate or someone else. So this is something that you, as the messenger, can turn that normally terrible, nefarious tactic. You can turn this to the benefit that you're working towards. So we talked about interjection, we talked about distraction, and now you may use a third party, a surrogate, someone else. You may have people around you who are listening to this or witnessing it, and you may, as you interject, what do you interject with? Hey, Jacob, did you notice that one? You may go to a third party on the topic that's being talked about.
Dennis, you're making me laugh because I'm just remembering that our book. So a person in my orbit, in my circles, a friend of a friend of a friend, so it wasn't somebody close to me, was anonymously mailed our book. And by one of their family members. And they reached out to me and asked me if I didn't even know their last name or their address. So I said, no, I did not mail you my book. Why would I mail you? Well, somebody did. And I talked about
Oops. Okay.
And I have another family member who read the book and made notes in the book, specific notes, and did the exercises with the name of the person they felt was manipulating them.
Oh, boy.
And guess what? The manipulator went snooping and found the book with the notes in it.
Oh, boy. And they'll do that.
So if you didn't know that Dennis and I have a book, we have a book, and it's powerful.
Yeah.
Because it has exercises in it to awaken you to manipulation. The things that you will learn in our book, you won't be able to unknow once you know.
Yeah.
But that's a different form of messenger, right? So
but that's a legitimate thing. You may send somebody the book. You don't want to confront them personally, but it's not one of my favorite things. I don't think that's the best.
Well, I don't think it works. Sending the manipulator our book isn't
not the manipulator. The target.
Right. The target. Yes.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I would never want the target's manipulator to see our book.
Oh.
I don't think that would go over well. It has to,
It kind of depends.
You got to put a fake cover on it that says like how to needlepoint or something.
Yeah,
or fly fishing, something that nobody will be interested.
If the manipulator knows you're on to him, let's say it's him. If the manipulator knows you're on to him, he's going to watch out about you. You can actually say to the manipulator,
he's going to launch a campaign against you, and that will be the slow murder of
no reason to be afraid, no reason to hide it. Say, look, pal, I know what you're doing here, and I'm not going to put up with it. I'm going to talk to her and tell her, but you can tell him directly that you're going to do it.
And that's when you get cut off.
When you talk yes, you will. When you talk to that person who's being targeted, you can say, honestly, I've spoken to whoever his name is. I've spoken to him. And he recognizes that, and you can have that conversation a little bit more openly. You don't have to be so serendipitous or nervous about it.
That will destroy the relationship.
It may or may not.
No manipulator will tolerate somebody undermining them.
Oh, who cares about the manipulator? I understand what he will do.
This is what the whole episode's about, though, Dennis. It's how if you're direct, you cannot have a rational conversation with a manipulator.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having that conversation with the target. And I don't care if the manipulator knows.
Okay, but even the target, if the target is in too deep, you're going to ruin the relationship. The person will cut you off.
Yes.
Because here's what a target will do.
Yeah.
You say to the target, I don't like the way Bob talks to you. He talks to you with such contempt. He walked in the door the other day, he didn't even say hello to you. You know what that target's going to do? They know that stuff's going on.
Yeah.
They're weak. They're stuck in this relationship. They can now make you the blame, shift the
Yeah.
blame to you and say
I
to Bob,
understand.
look, Bob, even my sister said, you don't treat me with respect. And you didn't even say hello to me when you walked in. Now you
Mhm.
might as well go get a can of red paint and paint a target on your back
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you, my sister, are on your way out.
Okay. Any one of these techniques that we're talking about, interjection, distraction, surrogate, the one I just described, any one of them is not going to be perfect for every one of you or for every situation. You have to choose carefully which one you
You
think
do. It's
fits
very
that
nuanced.
situation that you're in. They won't all work. And
Well,
you'll
you
have to
know how you
determine
know
which
it's not
one.
working? You when if you even very gently, very subtly say to the target, I just don't think it's very nice the way he is sometimes. He seems a little fickle. Now, if that target says to you, oh no, he's just in a bad mood. He's not
Mhm.
like that. You've got
Yeah.
him all wrong. If they
Yeah.
get very defensive, that's a
Yeah.
landmine.
Yeah.
Consider that
Back
your
off.
first warning.
Yep.
If
Back
you
off.
don't want that relationship shattered, they
Right.
have shown you,
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
They're
I
not
can't
ready.
face the truth about Bob. I somewhere deep inside me, I know it,
Mhm.
but I've
Yeah.
got kids giving me
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
financially dependent on him.
Yeah.
I can't whatever it is. They cannot deal with it.
Yeah. This
It's
is this is
very
why
hard.
this is why we're saying this is how the messenger gets murdered.
That's
You
right.
may lose your livelihood, your life by doing this kind of a thing.
No,
Doesn't mean
not
you
your
shouldn't do it, but
the
you've got to be
relationship gets
you got to
murdered.
be
I'm not
really
saying the person.
cautious. Be really cautious about should you do it? If you do it, when should you do it? When you do it, how should you do it? These are the things that we're talking about. But
Now, if a
it's all up to
campaign
you.
if you've already made that mistake, and maybe you have because you did it for all the right reasons, because you just can't stand to
Yeah,
watch this
watching it.
happening to
Yeah,
your friend or your
yeah,
sister or
yeah,
whoever, your mother or your
yeah,
coworker, whoever it
yeah,
is, you just can't stand it. So you speak up and you've said, "Hey, come on. Like, why are you putting up with this? Why are you putting up with this?"
yeah.
And you notice that a campaign's being launched against you. All of a sudden, you're getting icy feelings from your friend, and all of a sudden you're getting looks of contempt from the manipulator, and all of a
Mhm,
sudden you starting to feel like, oh, something shifted here,
mhm.
because now you're going to be on the out pretty soon. You're going to be on the out. So if you see those signs, you got to turn it around.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
be asleep at the wheel, because
yeah.
next thing you know, they'll find a reason, they'll pick a fight, they'll do
Mhm.
something, and just I'm done with you. I'm never going to speak to you
That's the
again.
backlash. That's the
Yep.
backlash we're talking about.
Yep, because they had to choose between you and the manipulator, or
Mhm.
hearing the truth from you or being with the manipulator, and
Yeah.
they are going to choose the manipulator if they're not ready to face all of the fallout that happens when you untether from a
So just
manipulator.
a quick word before we close today. Just a quick word. We've talked about the messenger. I want to say a quick word to the targets. Those of you who are being manipulated. When someone comes to you with this kind of a concern, raises it as a question, as a comment, as a criticism, as just a topic for conversation, do yourself a favor. We've talked about this before in other settings. Do yourself a favor. Listen. Be curious. What makes you say that? Go a little bit into it. Don't just brush it off. Don't just throw backlash at that person. They may be doing you a big favor. This is hard for you to hear because this is something that you have to then do in terms of
Yeah.
not murdering the messenger.
Dennis, before we close, I just remembered something that happened I have three things that I came up with. I think they're in the book.
You
But
got a
I had
minute
a
to do it.
I know I had a friend of mine who was telling me about her husband. He keeps, doing the A, B, and C, whatever it was. And
Mhm.
they keep getting into a fight about it. And then he's sorry. And then he says he'll change. And I told her, I said, there's three things, you remember this from the book, that a healthy relationship needs. The first one is you need to be able to tell someone,
Mm.
be able to communicate with them about something that's bothering you with,
Mhm.
and then the second thing is they actually hear you. They listen to it. They validate your feelings. They don't say, "Oh, you're too sensitive." Oh, that's the
Mhm.
classic, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to express how you feel. They have to hear and prove that they validate your feelings. But the third thing is, if they don't change the behavior that you brought up, if they go back and do the same behavior again, that's a sign of disrespect.
Mhm.
They do not care. They're telling you with their actions, I do not care about your feelings, even though I said I did, even though I said I was sorry. And if you don't have all of those three things, you should not be in that relationship because they don't care. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's hardly it, but that's it for today.
That's
That's as
it for
much
today.
time as we have,
That's
and
it for
that's hardly it, and that's the point. We are here to talk about all of it with you, whether it's you being manipulated or you being a messenger who sees the manipulation going on. We're talking about all of it, and
And
we're
we're
here
living it. We're experiencing life like you
we
are.
all do. We're all targets, no matter what. You're human, you're target. And we're here every Friday, and every Friday at 4 Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time
It
now.
goes by
Uh,
fast.
we want you to be here with us, to hear us. You can talk, Robin. Tell everybody how they can reach us.
Yes, find us at our website, outwitinrealtime.com. We've got 2024 workshops. They're going to be published in the next week or two. We've got an online workshop coming up in May. You'll find the information there, especially if you subscribe. Just drop your email in. Don't worry about spam because I'm not that sophisticated. I wouldn't even know how to
Me
spam you.
neither.
We haven't even sent our first newsletter or
Yeah.
we haven't even done it. So you're going to hear from us only when it's relevant because we don't want to manipulate you. So please do connect with us on social, outwitinrealtime.com. You can find all of our social as well.
Great. Thank you for that, Robin. And thank you for being with us this week. And in every time that we're here, you're welcome. And we invite you back again next Friday for this live stream, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And feel free to drop comments in the chat. And as Robin said, you have a way now to reach out to us, drop us a line, reach out to us. We will get back to you. But for today, a lot to think about. It's a little bit different than talking about the target because now the messenger could become a target. So we gave you a lot to think about today. So if any comments or questions, don't forget to drop us a line. And until next time, which is Friday of next week, for my colleague and my co-host, Robin Golinski, I'm Dr. Dennis Becker, saying thanks for listening and bye for now.